employers underestimating the impact of the latest KiwiSaver and minimum wage changes? This week we're joined by Melanie Morris, founder, head bookkeeper and principal trainer from Training and Beyond, to break down the KiwiSaver and minimum wage changes that took effect on the 1st of April. With increased scrutiny on compliance and growing pressure on businesses to get payroll and planning decisions right, how should businesses respond and what should be top of mind as they review their obligations? Also on today's show, will living wage rises ease cost of living pressures? And lastly, are you looking to hire quality talent fast? We have again, of course, 3 new top candidates that are ready to work across New Zealand. No mai haere mai, welcome to the show and glad that you're back here to watch. I hope you've had a very relaxing and refreshing Easter break and straight back into it. I'm Shannon Barlow, Managing Director for Frog Recruitment. Now, on today's show, so as you would have heard and noticed, from the 1st of April, New Zealand employers have been navigating a new round of KiwiSaver and minimum wage changes. These updates include higher adult, starting out and training minimum wage rates, as well as an increase in default employer KiwiSaver contributions from 3% to 3.5%. So while these changes may appear relatively simple on paper, the practical impact can be far broader for employers. For many businesses, the challenge has not just been knowing what changed, but making sure that those changes were properly worked through and applied across the organisation. To discuss this further, we're joined today by Melanie Morris, founder, head bookkeeper and principal trainer from Training and Beyond. Kia ora, Melanie.
Kia ora, Shannon. Thank you so much for having me here today.
Oh, fantastic. Can you tell us a bit more about yourself and, of course, your award-winning bookkeeping and training centre?
Thank you. Sure, yeah. So after a very varied career in travel and recruitment and medical management, and my first self-employed business as a worm farmer, that was exciting. I started a bookkeeping business way back in 2006, and that was due to a need of having to have flexible working arrangements with 2 young kids being on my own. It was a great decision, as it turns out. I started at the same time as Xero that launched, so that was pretty good. I became one of their first partners and then became one of their trainers on contract. Then over time, while still keeping the bookkeeping business running, I became a part-time employee with Xero as head of bookkeeping. So really, really grateful for that journey. And then along the way, I sort of found that there was a lot of bookkeepers out there working in silo at their kitchen tabletops without a sort of a professional body or an association. So I decided to found one, and it was called the New Zealand Bookkeepers Association back then. And we have now got this wonderful community in New Zealand. It's now called the ICNZB, and we work with Inland Revenue and other key stakeholders, and we've become bookkeeping agents, so we can work on behalf of our clients. So all in all, really great. Nowadays, I'm fully immersed in Training and Beyond, which provides bookkeeping services and training services, implementation for our clients nationwide. A big part of our role is payroll. That seems to be an area that employers need help or would like to bounce some ideas off. And for me personally, I found that my role has turned more into bookkeeping advisory. So not just punching the numbers and providing the reports, actually having conversations with the clients about where have they been, where are they going, what are the risks out there, what are the positives. So it's a great profession. I hope that helps.
Absolutely, and it definitely sounds like you're the go-to person with the finger on the pulse there. Now, of course, a lot has changed on the 1st of April, and it wasn't just getting ready for the Easter Bunny's arrival. To start off, what were the biggest KiwiSaver and minimum wage changes that businesses needed to be across straight away?
Yeah, so there were some quite big headline changes that occurred on the 1st of April. So it wasn't April Fools, of course. The KiwiSaver default rate changed from 3% to 3.5%. So that's the employer's contribution and also the employee's minimum contribution. Of course, some employees and employers have a higher rate that they contributed anyway. So that happened on the 1st of April. We also had a change where the younger people, 16 and 17-year-olds, are now eligible for a compulsory employer KiwiSaver contribution. So that's new. So employers need to factor that into their payroll as well. And the minimum wage, the adult rate increased from $23.50 an hour to $23.95 an hour, which is, quite an increase, 45 cents per hour. So that equates to around $18 extra a week or $938 a year. So it's quite a lot before tax. So that will be for full-time employees working 40 hours. Also, the training and starting out minimum wage increased to $19.16 an hour, which remains at the standard 80% of the adult minimum wage. So that's quite a lot, isn't it, that happened
Yeah.
on the 1st of April?
Absolutely. So a lot to keep track of, and as you say, make sure that you're getting right. Where do you think businesses are most likely to get caught out or to drop the ball, even when they may be trying to do the right thing?
Yeah, I think the biggest risk really is just sort of assuming that the payroll software will handle everything automatically. It will probably, but you still need to understand what it means. In fact, just one of our clients that we're working with at the moment, we're converting them to a new payroll, and we're mirroring what they did on their last payroll. And the payroll ended the 29th of March, but the payday was the
Mhm.
1st of April. And in the payroll that they had run, they actually still had that at the 3%. So really easy to get caught out on things like that. And I think really just understanding the rules behind that, particularly with the younger employees, they may not be across that because we didn't used to enroll the younger employees in KiwiSaver. Just making sure the staff communication is there, like are people wanting to opt out? They can apply to have to stop it for 3 to 12 months. So having that communication to make sure there's no surprises.
Mm. Well, yeah, you mentioned I guess the key date is at the actual payday, not when the work has happened. So I have to confess that was something that nearly caught us out here. So for our temps and contractors, they're on a fortnightly pay scale. So we thought, oh, yep. Well, it's all about the date that they're working. Good thing we've got a great payroll team and support over in Australia to help us out as part of the larger group. So quickly stepped in and said, no, that's wrong. Quick, fix that. But luckily we got that in play. But as you say, really easy to get caught up there, and especially when there is a lot going on. Um, so are these well, I think I know the answer to this one, but are these regulatory changes making the end of financial year planning more complex for businesses? And I guess especially when teams are already they may be reviewing budgets, looking at payroll accuracy, they might be still fixing up problems from the past, and looking at workforce costs at the same time.
100%. It definitely makes it more complex because April's already busy. I mean, you're recovering from, for most of us in New Zealand, a December close down for the holidays, and then you come back and there is a PAYE due on the 20th, the November GST is due on the 15th of January, and then so on and so forth. So there's quite a lot to catch up on already. And then we're sort of doing the runway through to the end of financial year. And for many businesses, they've got to think about making sure that their company is in the best financial position for that line in the sand for the 31st of March. Stock takes, lots of different things going on. So, yes, it's already busy. And I think having these compliance issues, well, not issues, we have to be compliant, don't we? But it's actually thinking more about what does this mean? So, yes, I know I need to be compliant, but have I done it correctly? And as we've just discussed, it's easy to trip up on dates and things like that. And then also thinking about what does this mean for the business moving forward? So if I'm looking at my P&L and I'm looking at my budget and my cash flow forecasting for the year ahead, then this increase will increase that bottom line on the P&L. So we would recommend doing something like a profit and loss and working out your trading income percentage against your wages to see whether you're in the right margin that you should be. So yeah, I
Mm.
think people need to be thinking about their budgeting. They need to be thinking about their margins. Do they need to consider reviewing the pricing? And of course, right at the moment, at this very point in time, we do have some uncertainty around us
Mm.
with other factors as well.
Yep, absolutely. I guess what's your feeling from obviously you provide a lot of support in your services to different businesses trying to navigate these changes, and as I said, there seems to be a real intention to get it right, but it's a tricky business to do that. Do you think there's been a shift in how compliance is being approached or perhaps enforced in New Zealand?
A really good question, Shannon. I reflected on this recently, actually. What is interesting is that the biggest shift out there is that it's more real time. So, with the advent of AI supporting systems with more sophisticated software and platforms, uh, accounting, bookkeeping, and the government response time is much more time sensitive. So, some of you may have noticed that you get a message from Inland Revenue on your My IR quite quickly after your income tax was filed. It's sort of quite quick, and there's a refund or not. It's much more real time.
Mm. Okay. Well, I guess too, if there's one action that every New Zealand employer should take out of this conversation, what's your top tip for one takeaway?
One takeaway so hard, isn't it? It's terrible. I think we need to make sure that you're not just checking your payroll for making sure that it's compliant. You need to check your numbers. So for sure, make sure the minimum wage is updated, the KiwiSaver is correct, that type of thing. But also really focus on the next step. Was how will this change in our business? How will this change our numbers in our business? And are we still where we need to be? And calculate the percentage of wages to trading income, and just really open the communication with your employees. Some of them may have applied, to go on a stay from 3 to 12 months. It would be terrible if you didn't update your software to reflect that as well. But take the opportunity now. You know what the figures are. You know in 2028 it's going to go up to 4%. So you've got a good run at it now and definitely understand your numbers.
Excellent. Great advice there. And of course, you can see through Melanie's details and for training and beyond are at the bottom of your screen and in the chat there. So I'm sure she'd be happy for you to reach out for any questions. Chances are there's hundreds of others asking the same kind of
Yes.
thing. So I'm sure she'll be able to help. Thanks so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you. Ngā mihi.
Now, living wage rises, but who actually feels the benefit? So, you've just heard, of course, from Melanie on the very real practical impact of the April changes, KiwiSaver minimum wage, and all the moving parts that businesses are working through right now. Layered on top of that, we've also seen the living wage increase to $29.90 an hour. And on the surface, that's a really positive step, especially with the ongoing cost of living pressures, rising fuel prices, and household costs still biting. But of course, it's important to remember that the living wage isn't mandatory. It only makes a difference if employers choose to adopt it. So while the headline sounds great, the real impact depends on how widely it's implemented across the market. And I'm sure you would have noticed that it's quite a big difference between the living wage and the minimum wage. So there is some good news on that front. So last year, the government proposed removing the living wage requirement from certain public sector contracts, specifically in areas like cleaning, security and catering. But after significant pushback, they reversed that decision in October last year, meaning those contracts must still meet living wage standards. So that's protected around 5,000 low paid workers. And it's a strong signal that there's still commitment to lifting the floor where it matters. At the same time, we can't ignore the pressures this creates for businesses. Many are already absorbing higher wage costs, increased KiwiSaver contributions, as well as rising operational expenses, all while trying to rebuild momentum after a tough couple of years. So we're back to that balancing act we've talked about before on Mahi Matters, supporting workers through cost of living challenges while making sure the businesses remain viable and able to grow. Because the reality is, wage increases only work if the system around them holds. And right now, both sides, employees and employers, are feeling the squeeze. That's it for this week. Thank you all for joining us again. As always, if there's a topic you'd like for us to explore, or if you're interested in being a guest on the show, we'd love to hear from you. Please join us again. We love having you here.